Right, Cari Fratelli e Sorelli, and welcome to my weekly video blog. I'm on my way home from the allotment. I'm crossing Electric March Farm. You can see the electricity cables keeping up the phantom cattle. The guy, in fact, doesn't like having to give his land up for public use to cross like this, so he puts the wires very close together in an effort to try and stop people from using it. I imagine their mains electrified, so one doesn't want to be touching them. It's quite steep, this hill, as well. Anyway, you may realise that I didn't do a blog last week. In fact, I didn't do any videos last week. I had largely given up, and the reason for that is I'm still recovering from last year. A lot of things happened all at once last year that made things incredibly difficult for me. There was a third great questioning. There was me passing a milestone in my current employment. There was my sisters giving birth and raising children right, left and centre. And coupled with the fact I was fast heading towards my 34th, which I'm now past, I felt quite miserable. You know, although the third great... Oh, and of course, there was a 5-year plan, which ended right in the middle of that, and... Sorry, to hold you a bit, there we are. This ended right in the middle of that, and basically showed just how little I had managed to achieve in 5 years. It led to me feeling rather depressed, I have to say. Although the questioning finished last year, its effects continue because I didn't get a good resolution. That's where we've come from. I don't think I will get a good resolution from it. You know, being told not to give up and be grateful is not the conclusion I wanted to hear from where do we go from here. Not really adequate. It's a bit like escape velocity. You know, if you want to launch something into space, you have to... I'm trying to cross a sty, by the way. You have to get it going at a certain speed. It has to be flying fast enough to counter the air pressure and the gravitational pull of the planet in order to break out of the atmosphere, and then the universe is your oyster. And you know, whilst we have easily mastered that as a race now, you do not expect to hear that, you know, NASA has had a problem launching something because it's failed to reach escape velocity. But that rather is a good parallel to how I'm feeling. I feel like there's a lot I could do, a lot more I could do, I suppose, with my life. And I don't just mean that in terms of employment either. I mean it very holistically. There's also a lot of plans I've made and a lot of false starts. You know, I say they're sort of more like trials because I've put into practice something for a little while, but my problem is it fails to quite make the habit, I suppose. If I could only run all those trials simultaneously, I could be feeling like I wasn't wasting my life, I suppose, in a whole manner of ways. Some of it is an apathy thing. I have to be motivated enough to run these trials and to keep going. A lot of it is not helped by the fact that the past couple of years have, a lot of the problems have come all at once. As I said to you before, everything seems to culminate in a rather, another sty coming up here, a rather negative 2015. And there's nothing I can do about erasing those, I won't have children. I just have to accept that. I will probably be alone for the rest of my life, and I ought to just accept that as well. I may never get a well-paying career in a thing that I love, and part of that is that I just don't know what I want to do as a career, and I don't feel like I'm very good at anything, if that makes sense, or rather that a lot of the talents and stuff that I have are archaic. They would have served me well 300 or 400 years ago, but I do not live in the 1500s. So it's all got a bit too much. And last week, if there was any week that I thought, right, I'm just not going to bother, it would have been last week. Hence why, there was no allotment updates. There was no, I got to the stage where I didn't even post anything on Facebook for more than a day. People who know me, that's unusual behaviour. So I have come to the conclusion that I now have to face a difficult decision. I either have to reach escape velocity, or just turn off the engines and drop back to Earth, I suppose. That second one, whilst it sounds spectacular, I know I can't do that for several reasons. Most of all, just because, I just can't. I can't give up on everything. Life goes on regardless of, what happens to you. And it would go on regardless of what happened to me, anyway. So time happens. You just have to make the most of what you're given, and do the best you can, I suppose. And I suppose that I haven't been doing the best I can in certain areas. I think if I do conquer this apathy, if I do try and stop all the negativity and the depression, etc., I might be able to at least do better than I am at the moment. I haven't got anything to lose. I don't think things can get much worse, at least in a couple of areas of my life. So, anything that I do from this point on, I suppose, is a gain. Really, this way of thinking started a couple of months ago, I would have thought, around April maybe, when I sat down and, I thought very carefully. I've just been a little bit hesitant to put what I planned into action. It's not just apathy, there's a certain amount of fear as well. And that's something that I've got to get over, because as I can assure you, the longer we leave things, the worse they get, and the more time we've used up, the less time we have left, I suppose. So I'm sorry if you think this is a negative or a worrying sort of blog. I think it's not. I think it's just something that I needed to say. I'm not terribly grateful at the moment. I'm not happy. I'm struggling to carry on, I suppose, and not to give up. But one has to do what one has to do, I suppose, at the end of the day. And so, that's what I'm trying to do. I suppose it's always good when you've reached a level of awareness where you can say that completely sort of objectively, and with any luck, the more times you recognise it, the more chance there is that you'll be able to overcome things. I don't know, but it's what I'm trying to do at the moment, and now that I'm nearly home, I'm going to say goodbye. So let's finish with the birthdays. We have Tom de Blas, who I hope that I'm going to be able to meet on my next States tour. He's been very supportive to me, in fact, in the past. Now 34 years old, so the same as me. And did you know that not even Alexander the Great managed to get to 34 years old? No, died when he was 33, in fact. Anyway, Karen Sage, who I miss terribly at work. Uriah Farber. Who else? Sharon Johnson. Darren Elkins. Joey McGrath. Muhsin Corbry. Brian Butler, who I met on my last States tour, Thad Schlichter and Ricardo Lamas. So quite a lot this week. I hope they all have fantastic birthdays and eat lots of cake. And I shall see you next week.